everyone, to a new episode of Artists, Creatives, and Business series. Today's a special episode about this week's Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. We have filmmakers and talent with us that are part of two films that are world premiering at the festival on Friday, October 1st, 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. More into that later. But before I even get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Edwin Santos. I'm the board member of the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood. My co-host here with me is Faye Coons. She is the president of the LA Philippine International Film Festival. The chamber, we've been around for like 3 years. What we do is promote and support businesses in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and try to connect them with brands and startups and entertainment, whatnot, and stuff like that. And then the LA Philippine International Film Festival, they've been around for 2 years as well. Like the film festival that's happening this week, their film festival caters to Filipino American films or films from the Philippines, and they, competition, showcase, seminars, and stuff like that. So if you want more information about the two organizations, I will tell you at the end of the show. So let me introduce our guests. Our first guest is Randal Kamradt. He is a Filipino American writer, director of feature films at festivals worldwide. His 2014 film, Far Away, won the award for Best Feature at Indie Fest USA and is widely distributed through vendors such as Amazon Prime and iTunes. Film threat called Far Away a varied and unique cinematic flavor. Randall also teaches honors video production at Fillmore High School. He teaches film to over 100 students a year. Our next guest is Jacqueline Holden. She is a Los Angeles-based makeup artist specializing in film, television, beauty, editorials, and special effects. She graduated from Cinema Makeup School in 2011 and completed its master's program. Her work ethic, professionalism, and hospitality makes her a great team player on set. She has a reputation for her attention to detail and clean, polished style. Randall and Jacqueline are part of the film The Monsters Without. Randall's the writer-director. Jacqueline's the makeup artist and special effects. Please watch this trailer from The Monsters Without.
The Yablo, or monsters, were here before we
Every
were.
form of Yablo has demonstrated nearly human-level intelligence. It is because of that dangerous intelligence that the governments of the world, those in the know, have decided to keep these discoveries as a kind of open secret.
They came from another dimension 3 million years ago. Nobody knows what they were running from.
A monster from the pen, and he always known as the horrors we will reign.
It's not just the Yablo at stake. The whole world could be. You can't just let them be taken.
Are you going to stop me from saving the world?
Yay, there you go. Our next guest, or our last guest for today's show, is Georgina Tolentino. She is an American actress and filmmaker of Filipino and Italian Portuguese descent. She is working on various projects, including Operation Blackbird and a feature film called Untitled Watsonville Project. Born and raised in San Francisco, where she attended New Conservatory Theater and later UC Santa Barbara, she worked for numerous production firms in Los Angeles before starting I'm sorry. I know I had this correctly during practice.
Orduja. Filipino Amazon, that's, yeah.
Orduja Films. which focuses on amplifying women's perspectives and intersectional storytelling. She is the writer, producer, and actor for the short film No Dogs. Please watch this trailer. That looks really good. My first question for everyone is this. What was your motivation to start a career in entertainment? Like, what made you want to become a writer, director? What made you become an actor? What made you become makeup artist, special effects? We're here to aspire young students, young people who are thinking about getting into entertainment. Tell me how and what aspiring words can you say?
Should I go ahead and start? Okay, yeah. So I've always sort of wanted to be a filmmaker for a really very long time. I do remember that when I was in kindergarten, like when the teacher sort of asked everyone, like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And kids would say, a firefighter or a policeman or, a job that's conceivable to a kid. Like my answer literally was, I want to be a movie director. And the reason that I already was saying that was because when I was really little, I love Godzilla movies. I love those a lot, and that's still sort of a thing with me, as you can see from this movie. But I asked my dad at one point, I said, who makes these? Like, who makes movies? And he said, oh, the director makes the movies. And I said, okay, I want to be that. And so I've sort of always wanted to be a movie director since that. I may have strayed from the path here and there as I realized exactly how horrifically difficult that would be, but I've more or less stayed the course ever since.
Did you want to go next? Or okay, my well, at first I was a medical assistant, and then in college I actually was in a photography class. I wasn't good at photography, but I would do all the other students' makeup. So it kind of gave me a little start into, a little art career. And when I turned 25, that's when I made the big jump to move to LA. And that's when I realized there's so many different types of makeup. So interning, assisting, learning effects, got more into filmmaking, and it's like, oh, this is a career I probably would enjoy the most. So it kind of just happened that way.
I think my story is very similar, a merge of Jacqueline's and Randall's. I always wanted to be an actor since I was a kid. And I think, I took Halloween way too seriously. I would go crazy with my outfits. And I remember I would do the backstory of the character or the costume that I had. And I would make some of my costumes. And it was my favorite holiday. And even as a little kid, I just also loved movies. My dad was a bit of a movie buff, and I was kind of his movie buddy. So we would actually watch indie movies together and a lot of classic films. And then we would talk about it. And and then we just went to movies all the time together. And I think it was the happiest I've been. And I think I realized going to college that, life is short. And so I actually graduated early and then just went on and went, you know what, I'm going to go act, because I've done plays in high school, but not really seriously. So I enrolled in a studio and really wanted to study the craft and get better. And it has not been easy, but I think the feeling of having your seeds come into fruition is worthwhile. And I think having the feeling of being able to become also a storyteller and collaborative with writing and creating and collaborating with people like Randall, and it's just kind of beyond acting at this point. It's also just being a part of painting a communal canvas, I guess. So it's been really fun. I think for young people pursuing this, you kind of have to outweigh the obstacles with how fulfilling it is for you.
Faye, do you have a question?
Yes. Okay. First of all, I'm gonna ask Randall. How long is the film? Well, okay, so I'm just gonna go into the questions. I know your film is heavy on makeup and visual effects. So, and Jacqueline, you can jump this in because I'm gonna ask about challenges, because I made my first film. When I was in Manila, I was a filmmaker then, but it's like, for instance, Snow Dogs, it's a very short film, and people think that it's easy to make shorter film because of the time element. It's shorter, while a feature is really long. But in terms of No Dogs, like Jacqueline, how much research did you do? And in terms of Randall, there's really, it's heavy on visual effects and makeup. Of course, Jacqueline, you can add to that. What are the challenges? It's really hard to do a monster film for the fact that, but it's very popular. Like globally, they really like, horror movies, even in the Philippines. But what I'm saying is, in making the film, what are your challenges? And in terms of Georgina, like how much research you did. So I went through, because Watsonville riots is really, the issues there is very important to the community. How the white men prevented, the manongs from getting married to white women. That's an issue and a particular part of the history. I was never really told, the kind of discrimination that they did to the Filipinos. So it's a very important issue within the community. Even if it's a short film, that kind of films are the ones that should be shown.
I guess I can go ahead and start on sort of the difficulties of filming, the monsters without and making this great big monster movie. And it's almost hard to sort of know where to begin with what sort of challenges that we faced. Of course, we're filming all on location. We're shooting all entirely in the Philippines. And yes, we've got the monsters, which are all, which at least while we're filming, we're dealing with these practical monsters that Jacqueline is creating for us. And we've just got sort of tough thing after tough thing after tough thing. When people make their low budget movies, usually they try to avoid anything that's going to sort of tear apart the schedule or is going to provide extra challenges. It's usually the approach is to have as few locations as possible, as few cast members as possible, as few effects as possible. But we really basically did the opposite. We just thought, how many locations can we get? How many extras can we get? How many monsters on screen at a time can we get? And we were really sort of challenging ourselves and putting ourselves in tough spots like that. And I know scheduling was extremely complex because Jacqueline needed to get started on each creature, quite a bit before shooting would happen. So, our schedules were really multi-tiered into when talent would go to Jacqueline and start getting made up and when the shooting would happen. And so our Jacqueline had these very, very long days where she would have to start before shooting, putting things together, and then end after shooting, and the actors along with her. And we're switching between so many locations, and some of these monsters we only have for a day, because once we do the effect we can't do it again. And yeah, I mean, Jacqueline, what were some big challenges?
Well, when you're shooting low budget and I want to make sure all the monsters look a certain way, because even before just the makeup, me and Randall kind of went over each one, and I want to make sure I can give the director his vision within the budget I can do it in. But I did get really lucky. My old boss did donate a whole bunch of prosthetics, so that really helped. And I guess the other thing is packing for all, like, going international to the Philippines with all the airbrush and everything like that, making sure I packed all the prosthetics where they wouldn't get squished, and so that was a little challenging. But I think what ended up happening was I pre-painted everything here in the US, and then when we went there, Randall did find an assistant for me named Jeremy. It was incredible, because over here when we have a monster, you have like 3 to 4 people working on the full body makeup. You have a few makeups, you have a makeup team of 8. So it was just me and Jeremy, and he did such a great job assisting. So he made it great.
So how many monsters are in the film? You have like 6. It looked like, how many monsters did you have? And how many hours did you spend on one creature? Yeah,
we have somewhere around 6 or 7 different types. Like I forgot exactly what, but and sometimes there's multiple creatures. We have the Demonde, which are in the story, this society of these monsters who occasionally we see many of them on screen at once. And as to how long they took, well, Jacqueline, how long did it take to do the Kafir makeup job on Andrew Riley?
Nameless was the longest. I want to say that was still over 4 hours. The thing that was different is the outlets from America to the Philippines. My airbrush wasn't as strong. So it took longer. You remember? Because I remember my airbrush was like,
because of the 220 voltage, and we had to use transformers to make it work, but it just wouldn't put out the same.
Yeah, so his was definitely the longest. Poor Andrew. I think for it too is he's never wore contacts before, so that cuts into makeup time. Like for someone like me, I've been wearing contact lenses since I've had glasses since the 7th grade. So it's just easy to pop in. And then you forget when someone's never worn a contact lens, trying to help them put the contacts in. And then, he's having his whole body covered. His head was poor Andrew.
It's like a giant hat. Like he had like a giant hat of makeup and very heavy.
Towel makeup. So that one was definitely the hardest. And I feel like that day was like the hottest out of all of them.
It was a very hot day, and we had a lot of extras.
Yeah,
we had the whole cast and a lot of extras.
The makeup won't melt though, right? Or you don't want to get
the way we pre-painted it, the makeup didn't really melt, but during the day of anything that was airbrushed, I would have to, just do touch-ups on him. But Andrew was such a great, like for creature actors, I know, Georgina, when you think of being in the makeup chair, a beauty makeup takes sometimes an hour. So then when you're doing creature makeup on top and the smells, and you can't be moving his face around, or like when we're doing makeup you can just chit chat. It's like, okay, let's get all this on before we start talking so it doesn't ruin the monster makeup.
So in the monsters, what did you do? You research on it? Because the story is not particular to any ethnic race, or in the, you know how like in the Philippines you have like certain monsters. So in the story, it's not particularly like, you don't tell where the monsters, like it's any kind of, like, because in the Philippines there's certain monsters that are from the Philippines.
We have so many.
So how did you research on the monsters, or what?
Well, I first heard, like, I didn't hear about these sort of monsters when I was a kid, really. I heard about these much later. So, like, me and my then girlfriend, now wife and producer, Malu, we were in the Philippines, and I was sort of living there for a while. And the hurricane Haiyan came and, like, destroyed the whole area. And so we were trapped, kind of, and we had no electricity. And then I started to... I was just living there, and we were in the dark all the time, and I started to hear these stories about the monsters, about the Aswangs and all these, and you know, that is sort of the seed of research where I first heard about these things, and then just a lot of internet research, and then figuring out, like as you said, in different places they have different versions of all the legends, so that gave us license to be kind of like, well, let's take the essence of these and then make it up, you know, after that, you know, define it for our story. So that was the research for that. You know, we never got quite to the research on no dogs. I think we mentioned that. If we want to seg over to Georgina, because she did a lot of research on that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Georgina.
Yeah.
How much research did you do? It's tough
a lot.
to do research.
Yes. And I really appreciate you mentioning how important this story is. I grew up in San Francisco, so I did learn a little bit during high school, and then in college I took Filipino American Studies class, and then Asian American Studies. But even then, it wasn't enough. I think what's in the publications isn't enough, and so I actually reached out to the Filipino American Historical Society, and they introduced me to Dan Gonzalez and Alex Fabros, and Alex really helped me shape it. And the first version of the script wasn't at all filled, but I just listened to him over a few months, just talking, getting to know him, getting to know his life, getting to know why this research is so important to him. And it's very personal. It's his dad's life, who actually grew up with Fermin Tabera, who was one of the men that was killed in the drive-by shooting. And so Alex really had his heart and life's work, and just shared with me these elements that, you know, it was so hard to squeeze all of this in 15 minutes because it's a lot. And but we're only doing a short. So I go, well, how do we have all this rich story that's very important to the community be honored properly in 15 minutes? And so I thought, okay, well, what if two people were stuck in a diner during the Stockton clubhouse bombing? Like, what if a Filipino woman escaped that fire and ran into a white man, who ended up being a night rider? And Alex told me deeply about these night riders and the kind of hate crimes they would commit at night. They would set people's houses on fire because they didn't want these immigrants to come, Asian Americans, primarily Filipinos, because we were the migrant workers that came before the influx of Mexican immigrants in the farms. And a lot of Filipino men came, and some came with their wives, and some came by themselves. And so, you know, they're young bachelors. So they set up these taxi halls where they can dance and dress up and have fun and socialize and meet other people in their community. And some of these white women would work there with, you know, these little nickel dances that they had. And some of them developed relationships and got married and had mixed race kids. And it really bothered, well, illegally married, right? So it really bothered a lot of these men. Not only were these people coming during, you know, one of the Greatest Depression, you know, the Great Depression, they were taking jobs, and they were also feeling threatened because they were kind of disrupting their perception of what the American family unit should look like. And I thought that was very fascinating to kind of encompass, what if you were stuck in a diner with someone who is from the opposite side during a race riot? And we really just focus on that and the kind of conversation that may happen, while instilling the larger world and events going on around outside. Because I feel like I'm very fascinated with the zeitgeist of what's going on today with Black Lives Matter and the hate crimes against Asians, the zeitgeist of what's happening in social justice, and mixing it with real historical events from the past. That's how it's relevant today. So I think, we plan to do a larger version where we can do the dance halls and all this, but we filmed during COVID, and one of the obstacles was
COVID. But
COVID. I forgot my thermometer.
But it's tougher though, because it's 1930s, and your story was usually what happened then was it was actually the manongs who were like with the white women, because your story was on the reverse. It's the Filipino women and the white man.
Yeah,
because in the 30s, I think
yes.
they found
yes.
The 16-year-old was a girlfriend of the Filipino man, and then an 11-year-old was with them. I think she was the sister.
Yes.
So
yes, that really, I think,
were really the ones that are attacking and worse, because they really go to the ranches and tell them you cannot hire them. So parang they really purposely made the farm workers, get out, and they would threaten the landowners of the farms that you cannot hire the Filipinos. This was really horrible. It's horrible.
It is. I think what was really important was, yes, acknowledging that the primary of the Watsonville, Exeter, Stockton, Salinas stories is primarily for the Filipino men and the manongs. But we only had a female actress and a male actress available. So we wrote the character so that I was widowed. Because often Filipino women wouldn't immigrate here unless they came with their husbands, right? Because of the harsh conditions of living here. So the larger story we do want to tell focused on that. However, this is different. And also, I don't know if a night rider would have led a Filipino man, and I think it would have ended at the door. Like no more 5 minutes short, So I think I wanted to have a bit of there is a bit of a gentleman, even in those hate groups, there's a little bit of he felt sorry for this character and kind of I don't seem threatening compared to a Filipino man. So I think that was the kind of ability to have a conversation in a calmer way, and then obviously unraveling. Yeah.
So in terms of challenge, I wanted to ask Randall, in terms of, because it's really, in terms of production, mas costly. Talagang mahirap. It's costly. I'm switching from English to Tagalog. Oh my God, I always forget if you guys speak Tagalog. Anyway, so it's really costly pag talagang because there's of the visual effects and it's heavy on the production design. So how did you tackle that, Randall, with yung in terms of budgeting? Were you funded by?
So our financing was, we did a Kickstarter, which paid for some parts of it, and then basically a lot of it really was just sort of self-financing and sort of friends and family sort of thing, and like I would say that the movie actually looks like it cost sort of quite a bit more than it actually did, because there were just so much like kind of donations in terms of people's time and in terms of people's equipment and things. There were a lot of things we didn't have to rent, a lot of things we didn't have to buy that we sort of snuck around. And this is Philippines we're shooting in, so the usual things that cost a lot on a movie, we did everything we could to sort of sidestep it. So like the camera we didn't buy, the visual effects, basically me and my my visual effect company did. The locations we were able to sort of get at a very competitive rate, and so the budget, really a lot of it, probably the biggest single expense is simply flying people and equipment over, and then making sure everyone had accommodations, had places to stay and things to eat. Everything else we sort of just did what we could to get around it. Even the makeup, which was a pretty big expense. As Jacqueline said, we got quite a few donations and things like that to sort of step around it. And you know, if there's any advice for indie filmmakers that can kind of be gleaned from this, it's you know, look at what you have at hand, what you have access to, and do everything you can to shape your story around that, because you're either going to have to find money for the things that you write, or you're going to have to write for the things that you have. And we took the latter approach and really tried to build the story around what we thought was achievable. And that's why it sort of looks like, you know, I can't say the budget or anything, but it looks like it cost a whole lot more than it necessarily did.
So you flew in actors from LA and then
some actors, some actors and some crew. And we did not film in Manila, so I mean, even our star, who I think is watching right now, Jake Macapagal, he
Jake, yeah, he's a very good actor.
And we had to fly him in from Manila, so yeah, there was a good bit of flying around to get to just to be at our location, and being at that location and getting us all there and getting us all settled, that would probably be the biggest expense.
So where did you do the shooting? In Leyte?
Yes, in Leyte at Biliran province. And that's the island from which my mother grew up in, and that's also where I met my wife, Malu, who's also our producer. And like, we have a lot of connections with the island, with the people there. So it's really a very different situation of shooting than what you would typically imagine for, you know, if you were filming in Manila or anywhere. It's really very different.
That's good.
So let's see, Randall, so you directed both Monsters Without and No Dogs.
Yes.
Many filmmakers have like a preference of a genre. They stick with that one genre and they do that all the time, and some are varied. Where are you? I mean, one's a fantasy film, one's a fantasy adventure film, and one's a serious drama. Are you the type of director that will try different genres, or do you stick with one?
I think to me, in many ways, it's all essentially the same. You know, it's all you know, no good adventure film is going to stand on just pure action scenes all day long. Like, it has to have drama, it has to have comedy, it has to have all those elements in little bits and pieces. And even No Dogs, being primarily a drama, you know, there are suspenseful moments, there are even a couple funny moments, and it's sort of like, I mean, obviously some people would prefer to specialize, and you know, maybe I would as well, but for the most part, I do feel comfortable with any sort of genre, because I think that in truth, in terms of day-to-day work, it all winds up being the same job of tone juggling, of understanding when it's time to be funny, when it's time to do this. Like, it all comes up in each genre. So yeah.
Georgina, as an actress, but also a person of color, do you find it? I don't know about you, but in the last, I don't know, for me, 2015 seems to be like a peak of films in television and film, especially in television. And it seems to be growing just a little bit more, not a lot, but it's getting there. As you as an actor, as you audition and either sometimes you don't get the roles, sometimes you book the roles, how your opinion of Filipino American representation in Hollywood today? What do you think? What's your opinion? What's your thoughts?
I think, excuse me, the car next to me is starting. I think it could be better, obviously. I think Asian Americans in general, representation, it's absolutely getting better. I think seeing Shang-Chi's really strong gold opening weekend, Blue Bayou, even, you know, Malignant, like, you know, there are all these back-to-back movies that have Asian leads is really important. Filipino American specific, though, is a little unique, because I think just culturally we're very distinct. And I know that for some auditions, I've been asked to play other ethnicities, which I'm not. And it's a little uncomfortable, you know, and then we kind of get criticized a little later for playing a different ethnicity, right? When generally white actors can kind of play anything and not really necessarily get that flack. But when you're starting off, you want to build those credits. So it's a little challenging, but I think I've gotten more auditions in the past 2 years. And in this year, I think I've gotten audition probably 3 to 4 times a week, which is sometimes 3 times a year before. So I can definitely see how open people are, and I think how inclusive people are becoming, and also who's behind casting, who's behind producing, who's behind writing. There's more people of color and dynamic people who are open to the conversation of educating themselves about different ethnicities and really viewing us as integral part of the American storytelling. So I think it's absolutely gotten a lot better. I think we have to collaborate with other groups that may not necessarily be Filipino sometimes. I think that's what we have to kind of gear through as storytellers, and as we finance projects, as we produce projects, as we create, because we are a very small community, and to grow, I think we have to also be intersectional with other groups as well. But absolutely, Filipino representation isn't just Filipinos fighting for our representation. It's other groups too, fighting for our representation to be seen and to get these stories made so they can really see the dynamic storytelling that we can be a part of. So absolutely, I think it can be better, but there's progress, and we all have to kind of be a part of it, a part of the visibility.
How was... Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead, Faye. Go ahead, Faye.
No, but my point though is we really have to write and tell our own stories. That's the only way you can push for it. As you can say, you can demand that, we get exposure or diversity, but if you're Filipino, you're closer to the Filipinos. That's why I think actors should really research, and research on the history, look back at history, and really we have to tell our own stories, because our heart becomes closer to our stories, because nobody else will tell who we are and what we've gone through except the Filipinos. And it's always better when you're an actor or the director, when you know that this is your story and you have to tell them, like the Watsonville riots. You never find them in history books. You don't know how bad it was during those days. I remember my uncle, my grandpa. He studied in Seattle. The brother of my grandpa. And when my aunt Pura, she settled in San Francisco. He was the one that told my aunt, come back here, because my aunt was there in the 60s. Because he was really afraid, because he took masters in Seattle, but there was so much discrimination during that time. So he told my aunt, be ready, because you will be discriminated upon. But of course, my aunt never listened because she taught until she retired. But because during that time, grabe, it was really tough in the 30s. Grabe yung oppression. It's really tough during that time. So those are the stories that we should do research, because especially the young folks, they need to learn that the ancestors in the past, they had to go through that, they had to fight through that. And a lot of people do not know the kind of discrimination and conflicts and challenges that the people, the Manongs, really underwent, aside from the fact that, they had to push for better wages during the time of Larry Itliong. But I'm saying these are the stories that should go on film, and people should know about that.
I agree with you, and thank you for sharing. One of the most eye-opening moments was understanding, why my grandparents are the way they are, why my parents, it's really bridging the gap between generations. And I think film is a really beautiful way to show that, because sometimes it's so traumatic for what people went through in the 30s that it's hard to share with your family. But I think it's really beautiful when the next generation can really learn in a different way that's beyond books, and it can really be communicated in so many elements. And I think Filipino storytellers should be behind the telling for sure.
Right.
But I think in the larger scope of financing and getting it larger productions made, I believe there should be intersectionality and collaboration. But I think the writers, directors, the actors should be Filipino for sure.
Go ahead, Edwin. You were going to ask something. I'm sorry, I had to step
Oh, no,
in.
no, no.
If I don't step in, I will forget.
Oh, of course. No,
But,
no problem.
you know, I'm old now. So
Oh,
if I
no,
don't
no,
forget,
no.
I will forget.
So I'm gonna
Go
say
ahead.
I was when I brought up about representation about with you, Georgina, and then what Faye has mentioned gave me a little bit more. So Randall, like, how was okay? So you said some Filipino American actors from here went to the Philippines to film your film, to work on your film. How was their? I mean, I don't know. It's not your job to watch them, to watch their adjustments while they're in the Philippines. But did you sense anything? Did they mention anything about their first time in the Philippines?
Oh, for Filipino Americans coming
Yeah.
to during the shoot?
Yeah, the crew and the actors.
I mean, really, I think who came over from the US, who was Filipino American, I mean, that would just be me and then and that would be me and then Jacqueline and then our lead actress, Jessica Neidstadt. And we had all been to Philippines before. In fact, that was kind of a big thing for us with this production, was like, hey, let's really make sure that we get people who are going to be able to handle being in the provinces in Philippines, you know, and sort of not having access to certain luxuries. And, you know, that's really why it was great having Jacqueline and Jessica, because they knew what they were in for. And I mean, in terms of adjustment, I mean, really, it's just getting used to eating Filipino food often, which we had already done, you know, with our families at home. And I mean, Jacqueline, was there anything you really had to get used to returning?
No, I think the only thing, because where my family lives in the Philippines, was Batangas, so I was getting a lot of messages like, "Oh, when are you coming?" You know, so that was the only thing that was like, "Oh man, I'm on a completely different island from you guys," you know. But that was, I think, and plus, I won't lie, sometimes now that I've been in California, even when I go to Florida, I'm like, oh, it's really humid here. So I had to get readjusted to the humidity, but that was fine after that.
Because Leyte is Visayan and Batangas is Tagalog. So do you have a different dialect?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't eat a lot of balut, huh? You know.
No.
I know people don't like
I was going to try. I tried something else, though. April gave it to me. I don't remember. It was actually through the trailer, though, when we were only there for 10 days.
I would think that we ate a lot of seafood in Leyte.
Oh, yes.
Most of the island. Yeah.
Well, that would be the, I think that would be the, well, not introduction to Filipino experience in the Philippines, but that's like, if you could pass eating a balut, that's awesome. But I failed that 3 times, so it's just not gonna happen. So let's see, Jacqueline, I've seen your work on the film. I've seen your other special effect works on your website. What's your inspiration to make these grotesque monsters become so real? And what was your, because like Randall mentioned Godzilla and all the stuff, and I can imagine, you know, whatever sci-fi stuff that he could probably mention. But from your, Jacqueline, from your end, what inspired you to make the monsters yourself?
Well, these ones, since it had you know, when Randall explained each one to me, that's when I was like trying to morph the idea of what each one should look like. The Demandes, the party, monsters, so I wanted them, I kind of gave it a little more of a reptile look, so it could still be like, oh, what's that, but you know, not as scary. And we chose, I think we chose blue because you know, like with the sky and everything, it just seemed like a fun color for like such a party group. They were by far my favorite makeups. The Demandes were so fun because the group that we were doing, the old Morales and all these characters we were doing. I'm so used to here when you have like the trailer and it's just like one person and you can really focus. So my first day over there and it's like a group of dancers, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through everybody? They're all like singing, dancing. They really made it so much fun to, you know, sometimes you get like as an artist, and I'm sure you're, you know, acting and directing, you kind of get in your head, is this good? Is this not good? Or do I need to like redo this makeup and retry it, you know? So it was fun to just have like a refresh of, you know, people excited to be in the makeup chair for that long. And even after the makeups, they were still always singing and dancing. So it was just, the Mondays were so great.
And we had really good extras.
It was me and Randall, like Randall actually had the great thing with Randall is he had it like sketched of what he wanted to. Because I think sometimes when a director like just throws out an idea and an artist tries to take over and it's not what they're seeing. That's why Tim Burton was like always good with his movies. He would like draw out what he wanted. So it's like, okay, this is their vision. Let me try to mix it with, you know, a few of mine, and then researching the aswang and, you know, like reading all the Filipino mythical, like, okay, well, for the kafir, like, I don't know if people even noticed it, but the whip marks and on his back, just to kind of have that small storytelling of what, you know, his character might have gone through when he's walking. So I think that's, sorry, I'm nervous talking, so I don't know if any of it makes sense.
And we had just to jump in, like the monsters were sort of extra refined, at least a couple of them, because me and Jacqueline and like a extra small crew went to Philippines like a year or a couple months before the actual shoot to shoot like a little 5-day shoot trailer thing for the Kickstarter. And you know, it was sort of a substantial investment, but it really helped the quality of everything because we had like a test run of of a bunch of the monsters. We did an early version of them all. That way we could kind of look at it and see what worked. Like we filmed it all on camera and everything with actors in the locations and everything, and got to see like what happened. And I remember the Demonde ones, like we really evolved that look between the trailer shoot, and the final version. There were a whole bunch of changes we made to just make it more convincing and everything. And yeah, that was very important. It was a tough expense to sort of make, but it wound up really helping the movie.
Great. Let's see. I have a question for you, Randall. But before I even ask you that question, I'm going to go straight to Georgina. Because when I read your bio, it said something about you're going to make a feature film untitled Watsonville Riots. So assuming, I kind of paused there when I read it, like, wait a minute. Well,
I wonder what that is. I don't know.
But I'm assuming that would be the version of No Dogs to be a feature film at some point, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
And so don't worry, they're not going to be stuck in a diner for 2 hours. It's going to be more of the Manong story, more of being recruited from the Philippines to come here, more of the contrast of the kind of stories that they were told of the opportunities here, and then and then what actually it is, and also the dance halls, the transformation of the recreational community centers to a clubhouse at night, and what that meant of the culture for these people, which was an escape from the harsh life that they had. There's an ability for them to show off their flashy cars, show off their little, suits. They had their own version of the what is it called? The Macintosh suits, right? And I believe that they had a lot of portraits that would send to their family and postcards. And Alex made this really funny joke that they preferred sending postcards because they couldn't put money in the envelope. They could just write notes to their family. And I really want to have a bit of lightheartedness and a little bit of humor as well, because there's joyful moments of excitement, of immigration, of dreams. And I want to show part of our diaspora, part of our immigration story, and maybe how some of those dreams can get shattered, and how that can be passed down to kids, and how I think today that could be an opportunity for us to heal and bridge that gap. But I really want to show the beauty of the dance halls, the music, the fact that these people who are labor workers had other talents. They were musicians, they were singers, they were boxers, they had other passions and skill sets, and how full our culture could be. And I want to talk about colorism, and there's so many different things that I think we can expand on after hearing Alex's rich story. I'm kind of like, man, I want to jam all this, but I can't in 15 minutes. And also the kids that are mixed, that come out being confused of their heritage, growing up in the society, and the people that do choose to intermix, intermarry, the kind of outcasts they could be in the community or welcomed. Like, there's different elements. And also the people of our community who want to have, with every civil justice and social justice movement and uprisings, we usually have people want to be peaceful and okay. And then there's the other group who are a little bit more angry, and they really want to have more of an impact, and how they can clash of how they want to go about social change for Filipino Americans. I think that would be very interesting to explore, because we've seen that in the Black community and Black Panthers and their kind of fight for justice. I want us to be able to see that in our culture as well. The dynamic, very human and ideology that we have as a community that can kind of conflict within the community. I think that would be very interesting to show as well.
Did you try to find someone so maybe they're old na siguro, 1930s, they should be like,
yeah, we had a few, but I mean, I would say yes, it's even with our consultant, he's almost 80, and it could be, there's a lot of health obstacles to even setting up interviews sometimes, and memory, and so we do seek a lot of resources that he passes through us and through within the community. But yes, these are absolute archives that are personal and I think should be told. So we do our best to keep integral to the honoring people's lives, but also creating these characters that are kind of a mixture of different, to move the story along, I think, and represent different elements. So we are taking true events, true people stories, and kind of creating a format that would serve the timeline and honor it within 90 minutes,
Because I would think they would, the Manos would love to drink and party, because it's hard to plant. Imagine all day long you're planting lettuce and all that stuff. By the time it's weekend, you'd like to have some sort of recreation, and party and dance, And there are books too, where you have like pictures of them, with their.
We have a lot of the archives, especially from the Stockton postcard exhibit that Alex Fabros had put up, and he's been a part of the Little Manila organization. But honestly, hearing it actually gives it a little bit more life, and you can get a sense of the essence of the personalities that people had back then. They're not that different from us today, and I think that's what I want to communicate is they still had passions. They weren't just working; they really were wanting to enjoy life, and I think that's what's a part of our Filipino culture is we do like to sing. I mean, how many karaoke parties have you been to? We love food and culture, and I think that's what's really beautiful. No matter what, we have that. We have the ability to kind of come together and have fun, no matter what is going on at work or the obstacles or the prejudice. We all come together and we're there for each other, and that's what I want to show in the story.
Yeah, a lot of them sing even in the fields while they're working. They sing.
Yeah. And we had a sense of humor. We have a really good spirit, I think, about some things. And obviously we want to show all sides, but I think having a sense of humor is one of the ways I think we cope, but also how we come together. And Filipinos, the community centers are very essential, even today, for people who come here so they have resources. You know, you come here, you don't speak English, what are you going to do? So it's great to have that community to guide you. And I think that's the focus point, is actually having a character just come here for the first time, and it'll be in his perspective. A fish out of water, just like the audience doesn't really know what to expect. They have these expectations of what they were told, right? And then it's very different.
Is there like a projection when you would start pre-production of future version? Probably we'll wait till how, you know, not how No Dogs Will Do, but more or less, you know, it doesn't matter.
I hope it is okay.
Doesn't matter. Well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, this is a very different version because of again, we're not stuck in a diner. It's not primarily based on a Filipino woman and a night rider. It is more of an ensemble piece. So the treatment for that is very different. Just because I'm assuming we'll have more resources, we'll actually build a clubhouse and stuff, and we just won't have one location for a budget. So I would say we're trying to, you know, hopefully get this, we're shopping it around by next year, just trying to get the story straight. And then, you know, filmmaking takes years. So I hope it's faster than that. I hope it's not on Filipino time, but we'll see. I think the social relevance of it is really helpful in what's going on in the world. I think people are seeking this, and people who are behind the production companies are wanting these stories. So I think we have a very good shot versus 5 years ago of getting this made a lot sooner.
That I agree. I agree with you with that.
Yeah. So Randall, what is your future project, you know, after distributing the monsters?
Well, I mean,
in mind?
obviously, I'll be there, working with Georgina on wherever No Dogs goes next. You know, that's hopefully a big sort of thing on the horizon. You know, I would love to sort of follow up Monsters with more projects that are sort of set in that universe. It's kind of built to imply that there's things that happen after the movie, there's things that happen before the movie. It's sort of a bigger thing than just the one sort of story that we told within the sort of universe we set up. You know, I did not make it like really. It doesn't have a cliffhanger at the end. It's not screaming out that part 2 coming soon, or anything like that. It's self-contained, but the universe that it tells about, there's so many more things we can do, and there's a lot more creatures, a lot more mythological creatures that are in Philippines storytelling that we just haven't really touched, that it would be great to sort of continue with. And then, I mean, just to have even more sort of on the back burner, like I have a couple of scripts, especially I have one script that's really very close to being ready that, you know, I would love to film. I would love to sort of get the jump on. The only problem is this script would probably be shot in the Philippines, and right now that's just not something that's feasible at the moment. But yeah, there's things on the horizon. It just sort of is what sort of lines up best first.
They're in lockdown. It's hard to go filming there. They're still in lockdown again. They're in lockdown, so it's hard to go film.
I'm working with another film that I'm not directing, but I'm helping with the visual effects on it, and they have already filmed 90% of their movie, and they just need some reshoots in Philippines, and they were planning to do those reshoots in 2020, and then everything happened, and now they've just been sort of sitting on their hands thinking, when will we ever be able to go shoot the rest of our movie?
It's very tough.
So with those directing projects coming up, did you start off as a visual effects person first before you became a director, or did you?
No, it's so my visual effects story is that I only learned visual effects within the last like 2 or 3 years, really. And the way that I did, and this is a unique way of getting at it. So we filmed monsters without, assuming there would be a lot of visual effects, and there were a lot of times when it was like, okay, that empty space over there, eventually there will be a monster, you know, and like, okay, well, Jessica, you wear this green screen pants and we'll turn you into an Oswang later. Don't worry about it. And so we did all that without any sort of really solid plan on how that would turn into visual effects. I mean, it was shot correctly. It was shot intelligently for visual effects, but who would do it was still a question. And then we finished the shooting and we got back home and we had spent all the budget. Basically, I had to sit there and think, well, who's going to do this visual effects? And it turns out nobody is going to do them for free except for me. So the method was, all right, well, let's log on to YouTube and see how to do these effects. And so one shot at a time, I did endless YouTube tutorials of how to do visual effects. You know, there's no better way to force yourself to learn something than to spend all your money shooting a movie that requires visual effects and then not have any visual effect people. It just puts you between a rock and a hard place, and then you have to do it. So I just did visual effects for monsters for a couple of years, just shot by shot by shot, learning how to do things and then doing it. And then I found by the time I had done, there's like 120 visual effect shots in the movie. I have almost no idea how many it is. I know it's over 100. By the time I had done all of them, I had gotten fairly good at it, and I had become my own sort of one-shop stop. And that was when I reached out. I saw that Lumpia with a Vengeance was looking for another visual effects artist, and so I reached out to them, and I sort of became sort of their finisher, and came in and did like a ton of shots for them to sort of get them across the finish line before their premiere. And that turned into even more jobs. And so, yeah, visual effects has been kind of a thing for me for the last 2 years. I never would have expected it, but the pandemic sort of made that happen, because once the pandemic hit, everyone still wanted to work on their movies, still wanted to do visual effects, but they couldn't, they were willing to trust someone who was just at home doing them. So I was able to do a couple of commercials and get involved with a couple of other films that way. So yeah, no, I'm not naturally a visual effects artist, but it has occurred somehow.
Okay. Faye, do you have any questions?
Well, did you do like a test of the film before you showed it? Well, it's gonna be premiered.
Yeah.
So, like, did you show it to some people and how they reacted?
Yeah, I mean, I showed it to Edwin. I showed it to Jacqueline. You guys have both seen versions of cuts and, gave advice. And I mean, there was a lot. It was an extended post-production of like what's working, what's not. And because there's so many visual effects, I mean, there was a lot that we could still change. Like, we could really go in and sort of rejigger the whole movie.
So how long did you shoot it in the Philippines later?
I mean, our actual shoot was only like 29 days or something. And I think we only had main cast for 27 days. And then there was like pickup shots and things like that. So the actual principal photography was, 4 weeks. It was remarkably short.
Great. Let's see. Let me try to go through my questions here, so I can segue very easy to another one. So like I don't think you really answered my question, Jacqueline. Like I know you got I know you did the monsters based on what Randall wanted, what the monsters look like, and then you put your own creativity into the monsters themselves. But in order to make those monsters, you're gonna have to be inspired by somebody who.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's when I think even with makeup, before I even knew I wanted to be a makeup artist, when I think of the movies that really like made an imprint on me when I was like younger, I remember third grade with Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park made me start sleepwalking. Like it was,
Oh my
so
God.
even with like the reptiles, like for the Demande, I definitely think of pulling it from, like, you never want to copy a makeup. But I think it was a mixture of that one and what is that movie called? The Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal was like, I loved all those, the Labyrinth, you know, the puppeteers in the Labyrinth. So I think Dark Crystal makes for the Demande. And then when I think of, you know, the master makeup, like effects making is Del, who am I thinking of? No, the director.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yes, thank you. For Pan's Labyrinth and you know, so I looked at, but that, like, yeah, those were, I definitely looked up like those creature movies compared to, because the biggest ones would be to look at Marvel, because they have the budget to make any creature of, you know, but since we were on a smaller budget, I did take inspiration of what I could do through like the 80s where Dark Crystal, when I looked at that, sometimes when I watch it now, I was like, what is going on? But visually, it's very stunning, you know? So Dark Crystal, like Old Morales was definitely a Dark Crystal moment for me. Because even the way he was walking, I was like trying to explain it to them. I'm like, have you guys ever seen this movie? Yeah.
Great. So we're both your films, The Monsters Without and No Dogs, will be premiering Friday, October 1st. No Dogs film is part of the short film program, and it's another word I cannot pronounce. Hold on. Darn it. Anyway, I don't know. Huh?
What is it?
It's part of the film festival. Yeah, that's it. Hold on. I lost the page. That's good, Ed. Yes, I'm working a tight ship here. It's part of the darn it, where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, it's part of the Kwentuhan program, shorts program.
Oh, Kwentuhan.
Yes.
It's like Kwentuhan storytelling.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, No Dogs will be premiering in that program of shorts starting at 5 p.m. Pacific time at LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. The Monsters Without is premiering that same day later at 9 p.m. At the same festival. Both of them at the Regal LA Live in downtown LA. If you happen to be in town, go watch these two films. Tickets are on sale. They're still available. Go get them. Yeah, go get them for both. Monsters Without, I mean, I'm kind of biased here because I'm in the movie, but I
have a big scene.
And I saw the preview of it, and I loved it. I loved how it turned out, actually. And for No Dogs, I'm so just that trailer alone. This says nothing but just there's no dialogue, but there's faces. I'm just like very curious.
So good, Georgina. I hope you're so proud of yourself, because even when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh my God, I need to see this.
Well, you know, it's a team effort. I know I wrote this, but it wouldn't have come together if we didn't have all the people who believed in us. And Freddie Duarte was the DP of Monsters Without, who we got Randall to be a part of this, and Freddie was able to get us a lot of the equipment from RD Media House. You know, this would have been, I probably couldn't afford to shoot this, but because of the people who donated their time, because of the importance of the story, and again, people who are not Filipino, who just went, you know what, I identify with this story. I think this is a part of my culture. They said, you know, we're going to give you all this equipment and make it happen. And we were able to be really efficient in that way. And Tangelene Bolton did an amazing job on music, who's also a Filipino composer. And she used the kulitang, which is the Filipino instrument. And I suggested it because I had one, but it's an instrument that's pre-Spanish. And I thought it was really cool to use that instrument because it's very grounded in our culture. So the trailer is all due to Randall's hard work, our wonderful editor. Why am I blanking?
Roy. Yeah.
Roy, Rian, and AJ, and all the hard work that everyone's really put in to make it happen. So
yeah, we had a great post-production team as well who like stepped in, and me and Georgina wanted it to be done, like we shot it on the first of, what month was it? Was it April or March? We shot it at the beginning of the month, and we had set ourselves a deadline of let's get it 100% done by the end of the month, like 4 weeks post-production, no extra time. And AJ and Roy and their team did it along with Tangelene, and it was a tight deadline, but we got it done, and that's why we're able to premiere here at LA Asian, is we were just moving fast.
And we also want to say Alex will be there to present the short film. Oh. He is really, he really wanted to see the short cut because he was having vision issues, and so he was able to see the short before he went to surgery for his eyesight. But he will be presenting the film, and I think that is the most meaningful thing. That's why we all worked together and came so hard to getting the deadline down, was because we really wanted Alex to see something that's his life's work. And for him to be on that stage it's really what it's about.
Yes. Yeah, both films will have a Q&A following afterwards. So yes, get your questions ready when you see them. For both filmmakers, Randall and Georgina, I'm not, okay, I know Monsters Without, this is the first film festival, right? That this has been accepted. No Dogs, is it also the first film festival? Or has it been accepted before?
This is the premiere. This will be the first showing.
Oh, world premiere. Sorry about that. When you heard both the films were accepted, world premieres, what was your reaction? I know this is a dumb question, but I'm curious.
Well, for Monsters Without, it was definitely like a very big breath of relief because, we had shot it so many years ago, and I have like Kickstarter backers I have many Kickstarter backers who started to say like, you didn't even make the movie, did you? You just took the money and ran. And I think we had plenty of cast and crew members who were starting to think like, does this movie exist? And so when we finally found out that we were going to have a premiere, it was really like, yes, at last we can lift this thing off of our chests and maybe someday go make another movie, because it becomes eventually a huge weight to sort of have a movie that's just sort of sitting there. I mean, it had only gotten really truly finished a few months before this, but I mean, it's definitely time to premiere the thing. So yeah, big breath of relief.
Awesome. How about No Dogs? Same thing. I mean, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, Georgina, you want to take that one? How did you feel?
Randall, you actually were the one that texted me the notification. How did you feel when you saw the No Dogs as well?
Well, I mean, I think I can say this because I didn't write it, but when we got accepted, it was sort of like, yeah, I really felt we were going to get accepted. I thought that this was really like the movie is pretty good. The movie is really dynamite, and it's like, yeah. So I didn't sort of jump up screaming, but it was a very satisfying moment of like it's getting where we wanted it to go, and yeah, of course, elation, very happy, and I texted you right away, and it's just the right place to be sort of premiering it.
I think because of what had happened, we filmed this short in March, and I actually just recovered I had COVID in January, so I had to isolate, and that's how I actually finished writing it. I polished it during quarantine, and so yeah, it's kind of a little Alice in Wonderland fever here and there. So I actually was happy because now I was like, okay, now I have 2 weeks off work. So, but we filmed in March, recovered, and then all this sentiment was happening, anti-Asian sentiment, shortly after. And I think we didn't realize it was more emotional, I think, to hear this news, because from that time of hearing all that, you know, all these horrible tragedies happening towards people who look like us, and then getting that news to the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival, I think meant a lot more than ever. And then the first person I called was Alex, and he was so happy. And again, to be so respectful to people in our community who have given their life to make sure we preserve our culture and pass it down, and make sure that they're educating the next generation, to be able to share that news is really, really what it's, again, like I said, what it's about. And it just was really meaningful to do that for him.
Yeah, I think you should show that in schools. Show the film in schools. Yeah, it's good. Show them in school so they'll know. During that time, the 30s, because during that time, the racial discrimination was really horrible, and you know, if it's, you know, they're not in history books. Like I remember Rob Bonta had, like, we're holding the Film History Month in Carson, and every year we hold this, and every year we had to force the city of Carson. You know, like we tell them, you have 1/4 of the population Filipinos, so we really have to push for that. They give us the budget, so every year we have to push for that. And then Rob Bonta, what he did was introduced, like on October 25, on the birthday of Larry Itliong, the schools must have something. But pero wala, he doesn't have any budget. I mean, LAUSD does not have any budget. So what we would do is, maybe next year we will ask some of the schools to do some sort of presentation in the school about Larry Itliong. Because it's really tough, especially now there's a pandemic, so it's so tough to hold an event if they don't want you to be a spreader. But we really have to push for that, because, you know, it's important that they know the kind of the part that Filipinos played in the labor movement, especially in the farm worker movement. Because they always, like, you know, the Latinos always say, oh, Cesar Chavez started it, which is wrong. Excuse me, the Filipino farm workers were already in the fields, and Cesar Chavez was wishy-washy. So that's why every year we want to correct this notion that it was Cesar Chavez who led it. No, it was always been the Filipino farm workers who led the strike, because they were already in the fields until Cesar Chavez agreed to unite with the Mexican workers. And that needs to come out. So that's why we see to it that our stories have to be told correctly, you know. Just like the Watsonville riots.
Yeah, and then
go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's best. I think Friday nights seems to be all Filipino night. Seems like, I mean, from what I got from the LA Asian Pacific website, it just seems like the majority of, well, not all of it.
I think it is all Filipino, isn't it?
All Filipino films?
Yeah.
On Friday,
yeah. It's because it's Filipino American History Month, the first day.
Oh, yeah, that's
weird. It's October 1st. That's the start.
That's right. That's right. I was thinking about something else, like Filipinos know how to party. No. Okay. So I'm gonna forget that part. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna close it out now. The Monsters Without and No Dogs. No Dogs is premiering. Both films are premiering Friday, October 1st. No Dogs at 5 p.m. and Monsters Without at 9 p.m. Get your tickets now at LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say, except this part. If you want to follow the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood, we are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we have a new YouTube channel under FACC Hollywood. You will see this show there later this afternoon. And if you want to follow the LA Philippine International Film Festival, I got it. It's just too many film festivals. LA Philippine International Film Festival. They're located at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And yeah, if you want to follow Faye Coons, she's on Facebook. If you know her, great, you can follow her. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on YouTube. I'm active on Twitter and Instagram, pretty much it. Our guests, anything else you want to say about the films, and also where do people want to follow you? How do they get in contact with you? How do they want to talk and get inspiration from three of you into this business of entertainment?
So for me, I have a website, of course, it's randalkamradt.com. And then my various social medias are sort of integrated with Monsters Without. So at Monsters Without is it for Instagram and Twitter. So you can find me there.
For me, it's Georgina Tolentino. That's my social media handle for everything. And to see more of our screenings, we actually will be having a virtual festival for the Chelsea Film Festival, October 14th to 17th. So if you're not able to make it to the LA Asian Pacific Festival, you can go to www.nodogsfilm.com, and we have all our screenings virtual and in person that you can come support.
And for me, I'm on Instagram under Makeup by Jackie, and I'm always trying to make sure I work with female directors and Asian Filipino. Like I'm actually doing a short next week with the all Asian cast, almost crew, because I think it would be nice to have more Filipino crews too. You know, it is interesting doing makeup for all these years and seeing like how everything's going. So yeah, but that's my Instagram. Thank you everyone for having me too. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having us.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you everyone for watching. If you missed this show on Zoom, again, it will be on YouTube, FACC Hollywood on YouTube, and it will be also on the other social media platforms that we have that I already mentioned, and I don't want to mention again. Sorry. Yeah, so that's it.
Next month we're gonna have stunts.
Oh yeah, that's it. Next month, well, not next, well, yeah, next month, October, during the Filipino American History Month, we'll have, the next episode will be a guest panel with Filipino stunt persons. That'll be awesome. I don't know that many, but if we can get Sunny, that'll be kind of
cool. Are you guys gonna have Dante? What's his last name? Oh, I'll message you later.
Okay.
Dante. What? Dante Basco? What?
No.
No, we're gonna have Sunny Sioson. I think he's in Hawaii and I was working with NCIS Hawaii for the stunts.
Yes. So we're gonna be we'll be searching out for film stunt people to be on the show.
Oh yeah, Dante Fernandez. He did Lumpia, and he's Filipino, and he does a bunch of stunts. But okay. I'll send him.
Awesome, great.
And we're gonna try to get the daughter of Diane Inosanto.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Diane Lee.
That'd be cool.
Okay.
So thank you for being up this morning, early morning. Everyone here is alive and well. I'm about to fall back to bed. Yeah, I'm just being funny. I'm not, whatever. Anyway, good night. Good night. Good morning, everyone. Have a great weekend. Get some more coffee. We'll see you later next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.